Well, look, folks, as we do, we haven't been out and around with out in tractors. We've been trying to practice as best hygiene as we can. We've been having a chat with a few guys that you all know. So, in the interest of keeping our hands clean, a wee squirt there, Eddie. Big James Mackay did this, you know, Eddie. And I can tell you how. I don't think his hands have seen nothing like that in all his days.
Not
But
many of us have.
I think we're trying to be as positive as we can in the current situation, but keeping your hands clean and sanitised is the best things that we can do for this disease, because I think it's just one of them things that's going about. You touch your face and you don't realise you're doing it, and one thing and another, and it's crossing over. But Eddie, the reason we're not in the fields with you is because, one, we just feel, Gary and I feel, that we shouldn't be going out and sitting in tractors and close confinement, and we wanted to grab a bit of a chat with you, see how things have been moving on, what preparations you're taking to get ready for the onslaught of two things. One, the pandemic, which we're all talking about, which is very active, and two, the fact that we might be getting a little bit of good weather now. How has your winter been?
Not too bad, to be fair. Although it has been very, very wet, we've had other work from other places, bits of work with the digger and
That's good.
sorting out for a building site, for a coal store and work like that, and it's kept us
Because
relatively
that's
busy.
something that was a fear of yours a few years ago. As the slurry ban crept in, maybe 10, 12, 13, 14, whatever it was years ago now, that was your fear always in work. And then as the cubs get older, they've started branching out then and got a bit more work. So you mentioned a digger. You have a digger in there?
Oh, I have a digger, and we've been sawing hedges, and then with that bit of work for that coal store, and it's been all useful now. And
Always useful. And we're sitting behind us here is one of your 6930s that you bought new.
yes,
She's sitting nicely kitted out with the fat tyres and all on, with the fertiliser sower on now. If I've got this right, one of the only reasons that she's in a position to be doing that there is because you've just took another addition to the fleet.
we have,
You're splashing the cash, Eddie. Everybody else is going conservative at the minute. Everybody's talking about people getting laid off and stuff, and Eddie, he lands into a new tractor. What's going on, Eddie?
I know it's easy to think like that, but a new tractor has to be ordered 3 months prior to you getting there, and whenever the tractor was ordered, things looked not so bad.
What do you order, Eddie?
145R.
A 145R?
Yes.
Similar idea to James's new tractors then, Mackay's.
Oh, aye.
You have a 155R?
2.
Oh.
Why the 145 then, Eddie? What was the
Special deal on them, Gary. £40 cheaper.
The last 2 came.
I heard that a great thing.
We were. They were had been hired out for the summer months.
Okay.
And were coming in a good bit cheaper. And so
Made sense.
Made sense. We thought they were coming to us with 350 hours on them, still looking like new, tyres no like new. It made sense. They were a big savings. But then there were nothing like that available this year, so because we're buying new and having to pay the full price, we're stepped back to 145.
145, yeah.
Not very much difference in the 2 tractors, but
What gearbox setup did you go for?
Original power quad.
Why, Eddie?
Well, sure, it's the old bomb-proof thing.
No, but it's...
Why fix what's not broke sort of
Yes.
situation. Yeah.
And some drivers that have been used with Massey's or New Holland or something maybe wouldn't take that well to it, but our drivers have been well used to it and like it, and it doesn't give us any bother. So
Yeah. But you have run auto power. You've had problems with auto power. You have run direct drive, haven't you?
No, we haven't run
Not direct drive, just auto power.
just auto power. That was a 6920S, and she did give us problems. But in saying that, only for the price, we would have bought an auto power this time.
Is it a big difference, Eddie? In the list price of a tractor?
It is a right difference, Manny, but we didn't actually go into a lot of detail about it because we're doing everything we could to bring it back to
Affordability. So, Eddie, you're, I suppose we're 2020 now. You were in our very first ever DVD. It's in the Blood.
How long is that ago now?
10 years this year. Whew. That DVD was released 10 years this year, and you were like the main man, right back to where it started. And it's ironic how things can pan out, because the farm at which we were working on that day, that farmer's daughter now works along with us as well.
Yes.
Now 10 years later, and you're a part of it, and we're still chatting to you, and Sharon's with us, and yes, we're in very uncertain times. We're all a bit panicky. We're all a bit worried because we don't know what's happening. We just get the feeling that we're being led up. I get the feeling we're being led up the garden path a little bit. That there's maybe a little bit more serious than even we are fully getting to grips with. However, all we can do is face it head on and do our best. And I suppose you feel you have to keep working. Like, what are you meant to do, Eddie?
Well, we have no other option but keep going on.
Yeah.
Because of the bad weather up to now, tanks are all full, no fertiliser sowed, nothing, and it has to be done. Like.
Yeah.
So we don't have any other option.
But to keep going.
And
your customers have to keep going too.
the customers have to keep going, and the direct debits will come in as normal, and they'll have to be paid somehow.
Well, no. But then, look, I suppose it's the situation where what you have to watch out for is if the virus comes in and starts attacking some of your drivers. So obviously they'll have to go home, they'll have to take their time at home on one thing and another. So it's just, I suppose it's one of the fears is having the labour pool to keep being able to do the work.
Well, that's true enough. The only good thing is the drivers are all young, and according to what they're telling us, young people, if they haven't any underlying problems, shouldn't have too big a problem with it. But
It's still isolation if they need to, you know.
That's right.
It's if they contracted, they have to go for a little bit of isolation, and you'll have to get tractors deep cleaned and all that crack. It's just it could get tough enough because nobody really knows. I know the FCA in Ireland have issued guidelines, you know, to contractors and farmers. Guidelines, you know, simple things like, now these may change even from my speaking this now, but I read this yesterday. No passengers was one of the guidelines. No passengers in tractors. Carry rubber gloves with you. You know, like disposable gloves, any gates or anything like that you're opening, always put the glove on, open the gate and close the gate, because they're saying on certain surfaces these germs can live for so many hours, and even in some cases up to 72 hours, and they're saying about that, and make sure that your drivers get into a practice of cleaning down the inside of the tractor at least once, if not twice. In a day. That's coming from the FCA guidelines, but I suppose some of it would be easy enough. Look, there's some people would be cleaning the tractor down a couple of times every day, like him, and and then, you know, but I suppose the gates and stuff, if farmers have been driving about and in through, and I suppose all you can do is hope that, you know, if you're going to, you know, stop and get in maybe to farmers' houses for tea and stuff like that in the short term, because you need to keep your workforce healthy, as to the best of your ability, to actually keep getting the work done.
Oh,
That's the way I see it. Like,
yeah. It's just responsibility, isn't it? Really?
well, none of us wants to be spreading it or putting anybody at risk any more than we have to.
That's right.
It's just we're sort of facing the unknown. We don't really know that much about it.
As every week or day passes by, we'll get a wee bit more of an insight into it.
Yep.
So, Gary, Eddie's looking to see if you're busy this season. He wants you to drive this yoke here behind you.
I don't know how to drive that thing. So,
Ach, we could teach him, Eddie.
Aye.
What do you think?
Okay.
Ach, we could show him. Aye.
By the time we do the first 1,000 acres, Modi would have a fair
thing
idea.
beyond there, Eddie.
Oh,
all the smashing done by that stage. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll try to avoid the smashing.
I hear you've upgraded your weapon for this year.
Oh, aye, this here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, aye.
That's not the new one, by the way, but you've traded her in. You going for the same again?
Aye.
Didn't think of trying the bigger one, or no? You just
Happy enough.
Now, the resale value in those there so far is right and good, and seemingly on the bigger ones it's not. So, and I think in some of the very outward places you might have a lot more bother getting the bigger one in.
Okay.
So, like that there has worked very well, and the fact that we haven't had to keep a smaller rake or anything else, that is the only rake we have, and she's fit to get in all the places and do all the jobs. So,
makes sense.
rather than keep 2 rakes, we just went the same again. And
well, she must be 3, 4 seasons done. 3,
she's 5 done.
5 seasons done. Were you driving it?
And she doesn't look too bad, sure.
She's not too bad, eh? I'm impressed, Eddie. I'm impressed. I see you have an old Heron trailer pulled in now. This trailer must be the oldest one left in your fleet.
It is.
And it must be a brave age too.
I
Couldn't tell you, but it
it be
must be 12-year-old.
12, 13, something like that. And she was getting scabby a bit, and the rockers and the axles was getting into bad old shape, and she was wearing the tyres at the inside. So we have that bit sorted, and we're trying to get the cosmetics tidied up a bit and get her respray and
Get her tidied up, yeah. Well, like just saying there, like that's that's old school Heron there at its best, and ever since you bought those first 12 tons, and that was talked about a way back in our DVD that you worked, not the first DVD, the second DVD that you worked with us in. We talked about, you had the 12-ton herons, which actually featured in the very first DVD.
Yes.
That was before that trailer had came about there. And then they were added into the fleet, and you'd started with your 8. So you've really stayed very loyal with Heron on the trailer front.
well, they have served as well, and they are getting better all the time. Like I think the newer ones, the paint work and all is very, very good on them, and they're shot blasted and all that, and I think they should last a lot longer.
Yeah, because like Gary and I have been touring out around there lately, and we've been in a lot of different manufacturers' yards, and there's an awful lot of great products out there. But we're back home, and the likes of yourself there is just, you've stayed very loyal to the Heron. We've worked with Heron before, and not only that, there you've got tankers now from Heron as well.
Now we have
Big tankers.
we bought a couple of 4,000 gallons. Because there's so much volume of sorry to ferry now that, and the windows are got to be like the silage and everything else. The windows are got small for doing it, and you just need to be fit to.
You need to be able to move stuff.
You need to be able to do a lot quickly. Like.
You like them?
I do.
Going well. And a nurse tank, you don't go down the lazy arm as they talk about. You've stuck with. You actually made your own nurse tank. Am I right in saying that?
Well, Robert done the most.
Did he ever get it painted?
Oh, he did.
Oh.
Painted it the same colour as the tankers.
Eddie, how come you haven't looked at changing this Big M? Because like that 11 years is a lot for a Big M, realistically. I know.
Well, we've been very fortunate with her so far. She has done right and well, and And we do have a front and back to go along with to get grass knocked down more quickly, and well, sometime we'll likely have to change her. But
I know, but it seems a bit strange. I'm just saying it seems a bit strange because we all know, like, that Big M has now seen is that Big M now seen its third harvester?
I suppose it has.
And probably third shovel or fourth shovel.
Possibly, huh?
Like, what's going on? Third rake. Big M has seen it.
Whenever you think about it like that.
Seen its third rake.
Yeah, I know.
Do you not like the British Razor or what?
Either that or he's very good. Some one of them.
Oh, well, he's very good. We know that much. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's weird.
I see where you're coming from, but well, she's doing well, and but will change sometime. Would like to upgrade, get a wee bit more horsepower, and.
But when you do change, you'll change right. You'll come right up to like a 450 or something.
Well, would like to.
Yeah.
But it'll be a Big M again. Nothing else.
Oh, I can't see it on anything else now.
Seriously? 250R, 3 Crone Moors, 3 Pottinger Moors wouldn't tickle your fancy?
Not really, no.
Seriously?
Like.
Even it was 40 grand cheaper?
But would it be?
Probably not, but I'm only saying if it was.
Buy 3 more.
All right, Eddie.
buy 3 more for grippers on them. There. Buy 3 more for grippers on them.
Depends how you're pricing this, Eddie.
Put a 300 plus, or you nearly need to get to 400
But it depends
horsepower.
how you're pricing this. You have to take the percentage cost of the tractor against the other work that the tractor will do for the rest of that year. That's where I can get my 40 grand from. Because the Big M can only do that job.
A 400 horsepower tractor.
A 400 horsepower tractor? What are you buying?
If you're going to compare with a Big M, like.
Right, so we're buying you a 942 Fendt, by the sounds of things.
Well, sure. Take a new 9.
This is a 942. Oh, I
the Big M, Eddie.
Yes. Kevin McGee, if you're listening, send up the 450. We'll get her bought. No, but I just thought it was funny because I've watched everything change here so much over the few years. Like, technically, you know, that Big M was here when the first DVD was made. This is my point, and I'm looking now at what harvester range I've seen. The first DVD was made with a 7400 John Deere. Then you had your 7450, and then now that's what I say, you're on your third. Just thought it was a little bit strange. I think it was the fact that you actually got a Big M away from the Mark 1 one that actually worked and didn't break down, and you're scared to change.
And that was one of the last of the Mark 2s, and they had the most. They had most of the things sorted out and the wee problems sorted.
Yeah,
and
it was actually ex-Wallace brothers.
She was.
Ex-Wallace brothers who we've worked with as well, so she came from them. So.
And like if she had the hydraulic tilting mowers, that would be fantastic, and that would be one of the reasons we would think and changing at some stage. Like.
Now, for the last video with us, the last time we caught you at grass, you were buck wrecking with your 418. When we were, actually at Stuart Connolly's, we were doing Twist of Fate, so you were on a 418. You've changed that?
Changed that to 435.
See, you getting this now, guy? Am I the only one getting this? So 416, 418, 435, 7400, 7450. 8600.
Yeah.
Lily Hibiscus 1015, if I've got the numbers right. 1015. What came after the Lily Hibiscus 1015 rake?
Not there.
That replaced it.
I did.
It's a 2-rotor, 4-rotor, second 4-rotor. That's the way that has went. H2s, big trailers.
Yeah.
Big M Mark II. Still there.
Then he's had it and 2 more.
Always had one, though. Well, that's good. I'm glad that Big M has done really well, because I think people throughout the world really struggle to get our fascination with Big M's. But as people say, unless they get in and spend a bit of time driving, like even your Mark 1, and we all know it was troubled machine,
Oh, aye.
but it was lovely to drive.
But really, their Mark 1 was their sort of prototype machine. They had a lot to learn, but to be fair to Crone,
Yeah.
they stuck with it, and things that were continuously giving problems, they did sort them out. And even when the machine was quite aged, they were still
Right,
standing the cost. Like.
And your 8600, you're still running the 8600. Is it moving into its 4th season now, or 3rd? 5th?
That's it.
Boys of dears, eh? Why are you not changing that?
It is 5th, isn't it?
You're right. What?
I don't
Did
know,
you
but
have
there's
your-
the army moving in.
It's just 4
Be there as long as the rate, really? Or is the rate must have been there a season before?
The rake has 5 seasons done.
Done.
The harvester
Must be 4
has
done.
4 done and is moving into the 5th. You know, so
That'd be right enough. It would be.
5th season of the
Yes.
harvester.
It would be. That'd be right. Because we filmed the harvester up at yours, that was 16, I believe.
I like it.
Boys of dears.
Aye, that
That's
was
due
it.
an upgrade.
Now settle yourself.
Yeah, and the big empty doing one hit next year.
You're trying to tell me that I need to change the big M, and then now you're turning around and telling me that the harvester's due an upgrade as well.
I think at this stage I'd keep the big M and change the harvester so you're into the 4th harvester in the same big M. I'm telling you, Crone needs to be, that's the machine.
She needs to get back in the museum.
He needs to get back. They need to reverse engineer that baby. Or is the big M like Trigger's brush, how it only fills in horses by any chance?
I don't think so.
She hasn't given that much problem, Eddie. Standard things, a couple of gearboxes and bits and bobs.
Just even give a lot of bother with gearboxes and things. Just, really, she hasn't been too bad now.
Good machine.
She has got an odd new bed and that, but in saying that, if the only contact that bed had ever come up against was grass, I think the original bed would still be there. Like.
That's the bottom line. People give out and blame about things being soft and stuff, but I'd say if any of them ever only came up against grass, they'd be all right and doing their job. Like.
Yeah.
So things are moving forward for E-Gamble and Sons.
But you do have to keep them forward.
Aye, well, that is true. No matter how tough it is, you have to try and keep them forward. But your Cubs have really taken it by the scruff of the neck now. Like, they tell me they try and leave you at home.
Well, the proof of that is today, right?
Eddie's maybe not that bothered.
On our slurry systems, are you still running the same systems when the last time we caught up with you? Still running the slurry cat and the eye quip, or are you and the dribble bar still running the 2 same machines?
2 same machines.
Same, pretty much along the same lines. It's the only thing you've added in there is your nurse tank and your 2 tankers for ferrying.
That's really the main difference, I think.
What are you spreading with? Still the 6? Oh, you don't have a 6.4 anymore.
Oh, we've a 6430.
We still have a 6.430.
You're thinking the 6420 is. She's gone.
She went for the 6.430.
Yes.
She must have some hours on her,
Something roughly around 16,500.
I do believe when we interviewed you, told us that was your favourite tractor of all time.
She's a great wee tractor. But,
You loved her.
oh,
So that's right. She was sold and replaced for the 6.430. What else is spreading?
well, normally this one here, but at the minute we're only going on to bits of ground here and there that's dry enough. So this one here was sowing fertiliser the other day, and she's still sitting there with.
And that's something Andrew really took, because that's your second of those fertiliser sowers.
It is,
And this fertiliser sowing seems to be getting into a big thing, because we know James Mackay, he has upgraded and bought one. We know you'll not want to hear that, and he said that himself, because he said that it was Andrew who did any wee bits and pieces for him. It seems to be a...
But there is a lot more of them getting about. But
Do farmers just not want to spread it anymore? Or is it just the accuracy?
Well, the accuracy is the main thing. And at the minute, their big wide wheels is a very important thing too, because ground is so wet, and used to be people wanting to spread when ground was in that sort of condition, but the season's getting late and they're starting to panic a wee bit. And
I suppose it is, like, we're almost to April just as we sit here now, you know what I mean? Sort of unheard of not to have a lot of ploughing and sowing done at this time normally.
well, like, you used to hear your granddad and people talking about the barley had to be in for the 17th of March.
Aye, St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
You know, but it's certainly not happening this last few years now.
But I tell you, this year's not happening anywhere by the looks of things.
No.
You know, UK wide. And like it is a concern, because people laugh and joke, and we have the fun, and we talk about John Deere's and we talk about Massey Ferguson's, and we'll have the banter, and we at GRASSMEN always encourage the bit of banter and the fun. But the serious side of all of this is, now that the world is plunged into absolute crisis, and the world is in crisis, like, you know, global pandemic is not a word I've ever heard tell of before. All these fancy words that get through into it, it's exponential. It's, you know, the speed at which it's growing at, and now is the time farmers are going to be needed and thought of and respected more than ever before, because there's one thing that you have to do: you have to feed your people.
Oh, aye, everybody has to eat.
And you have to feed your people, and you have to realise, and that's the one thing I'm not meaning to speak out of turn, but like all the activists and all the things that, you know, that's been pushed down your throat every single day in life, as last 3 weeks I've heard or seen nothing.
No.
Because
That's
we are into territory now where we need to feed our people, but the problem is we need the weather, we need everyone to work with us. Kind of scares you when you realise how little you're actually in control.
That's right, and maybe it'll make people realise that they should be eating home produce, that they know something about.
Absolutely.
Might hit the reset button a wee bit.
You know,
That's the
because
whole thing, like.
Honestly, but my point is, food goes on a wonderful journey, and we need to get behind our farmers. The government needs to get behind our farmers. You need to be supported through this crisis to keep the farmers going. Milk needs to be lifted. Milk needs to be on the table. And you know what? No matter how tough it gets, and it will get tough for individuals, no matter how tough it gets, as long as we can get something to eat, and we will get through, and that's the way I always look at it. As long as we can put food on the table, we'll be all right. And is that not what the old people always used to say? As long as you have a roof over your head and a bite of meat,
that's right,
you'll be all right. And a lot of people maybe realise very fast that there's a lot more to life than this whole materialistic side that we seem to have created. Maybe I'm being a wee bit harsh when I say that, but that's just how I feel at the minute. The boy says the cloth might have to just get cut a little bit different.
God, well.
Yeah, but we will get through it. The country will get through it. It's just going to be tough.
It'll be tough, surely.
And it's farmers will pull the country through it, in my opinion. There's never any time in my life has a farmer been more important, in my humble opinion, than he is now. Because you're right. The country gets into complete lockdown, shipping things get stopped and all the rest of it. We need to be able to produce our own food. Well, look, Eddie, we're not going to hold you back any longer. Thanks for taking a minute or two to chat to us. Hopefully this comes over or gets over and past us shortly. And we'll be back out in the fields, because as it's 10 years of GRASSMEN, you can understand. You were one of the guys that we wanted to be speaking to again and back out in the field and seeing work. And I was kind of hoping that wouldn't be here, considering, you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, he's kept her for a special occasion.
He just hasn't said yet. It's you has to, for the 10-year anniversary of GRASSMEN, you have to mow 1,000 acres in her. But you know, as I say, you've been with this wee business from the start, and we'll be doing the best that we can, but we will follow all the advice of the government. We're not above we're not above the rules or the laws of our land. So whether we'll be able to get out as much this year or not, but as I say, we just wanted to touch base, tell people that if we get the chance and we can, we will be back out with this Egypt, and we'll see him in his new rake, and hopefully loving life.
Hope so.
What are you going to roll with the year? What tractor will you roll with?
Not the new 155, anyway.
Or not the 145?
No.
Well, that
seat
was
on
the
her.
intention, but
But
they are
I heard there's a bad
Just going to get a seat, get swapped here someday in the works.
no, there's
Some boy's losing a seat at a 155.
as long as it doesn't go to Y70 at 10.
no, the new tractor has that joystick control for the front linkage, and they're talking about mowing with it because they can
Oh, aye, certainly they are.
they can set the height the front linkage will lift to.
Aye.
Because if you do lift at the full height, it's very sore in the
Shaft.
PTO shaft. So whatever way it is, they can restrict it to not lift as high, and because of that, I think she maybe will be going on to the two mowers.
They loved the 250R we had. Remember we threw it out for a couple of evenings. They were doing a bit
Yes.
of mowing. They liked that tractor, didn't they?
But you would have needed three mowers to justify her.
Aye. But I was just saying, you know, 3 mowers on a 250R. It's doable. Thanks, Eddie. We'll be in touch.